Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Croydon Constitutionalists Pubcast. I'm here with the other half of the Croydon Constitutionalists, Dan Heaton. I'm Mike Swaddling, and Dan, let us know where we are and what we're drinking.
We are in the Foxley Hatch in Purley, and we're drinking Shipyard, a pint of Shipyard IPA.
Because all the other drinks have run out, although it's a fine wine. Now, it's the third year of the Croydon Constitutionalists. Our first article was published on the 7th of May 2018. We're a little bit late, but we wanted to make sure the pubs were open inside so we could get out the recording equipment. And we thought we'd talk through some of the highlights and events of the last year for us as an organisation. So, Dan, if I might ask you first, what sort of pleased you over the last year and what's gone well from your perspective?
Well, obviously we've had a year where we've mostly been in lockdown, so we've not been able to put on as many events as we would have liked to do, but we have really upped things in terms of the podcast. We've doubled the number of podcasts that we've done, and we've had a few very, very good guests. Far too many to mention all of them, to be honest with you, on this podcast. But a couple that really stand out are Bill Etheridge, former MEP, of course, for UKIP and indeed the Libertarian Party. And a little bit later on we had Dick Dellingpole, who's a fascinating character and one who has a great following. So we've really upped the game on the podcast, and we'll really be looking to do that going forward.
Yeah, the ability to interview people over Zoom has allowed us to speak to others we couldn't have before, and that's been really good. I particularly like on the podcast front that we did a Christian podcast, how Christianity impacted people in their politics, and it was something really different, something that we couldn't have done before. I don't think either of us are greatly religious people, but we noticed that there was a number of people we worked with that were. It was just an interesting, different thing to do. So no, that was really, really good. So that's sort of some of the things that pleased you. What about what surprised you? What do you think, Dan, you didn't think would be the case at the start of the year, but maybe has been?
Well, I think we've had a great number of people have written for the website, and that's been absolutely fantastic. Really great to get people's contributions and engagement with those contributions. In particular, I'd like to thank Josh Ascott for his many contributions on the subject of economics, and that's really sparked some debate in the social media.
No, absolutely. Josh done a great set of articles. Interesting, of course, we had some excellent contributions on global warming from Peter. And from some chap called Dan on the Electoral College in the US. So we got Dan's dissertation up on the website, which was a really interesting read. I never knew he was that clever. He must have copied it, must have Googled it. Who knows? But also, one article I was really pleased with on that was a Brexiteers on Brexit, which I might describe as a crowdsourced article. I just sent one question out to many, many people, and thank you all of those that came back. Way too many to mention. We ended up with 7 pages of articles of what they thought about Brexit. I'd love to try and do that again. In fact, I will do that again. But great to get a short, sharp input from lots of people. So thank you all, everyone that did that. So that's if you like some of the good bits. What about some of the less good bits? Any disappointments, Dan? Anything you thought, well, that didn't work so well, or indeed events that didn't work so well?
So, just before the pandemic struck, we were having a physical event on the future of the BBC, and eventually we were able to hold that via Zoom, and thank you to everybody who attended that event and everyone who contributed to it. Those sort of events are great, but I'm really, really looking forward to having more and more actual physical events, and hopefully, subject to the science, as they say, we'll be able to start doing that from late summer onwards.
No, absolutely. It was great having Jeet, Harry and Sophia on that event. But I certainly felt that it doesn't work. A local event doesn't work so well over a Zoom call. You're competing against national bodies doing events. The point of a local event is it's local. You actually go and see each other. So that's good. We tried a similar thing with the Libertarian Party, which was one of my disappointments. The Libertarian Party sort of imploded. We've done lots of work with the guys. They do seem to be rebuilding a bit now, which is good to see. But in a year where we needed some liberty, we unfortunately saw them fall apart a bit. Other couple of disappointment I need to mention is Croydon Council's implosion. Not massively a surprise, but particularly a low light for me was during the start of the pandemic, where the council couldn't even get the grants out. It had all these highly paid staff and councillors, and it couldn't even get the grants out to businesses needed. And we've seen their failure in housing. An appalling situation. I don't know, Dan, a chance to look back on the cluster something that is Croydon Council. Any thoughts on that?
Well, obviously we've been raising these issues around Croydon Council's finances for some time now, and eventually it came to pass and they have gone bust. We just have to hope for a better council to be elected at some point in the future. Now, of course, as it transpired, for various reasons, we ended up having new local by-elections recently for Croydon Council, and as it happens, the same people or same parties were re-elected. So it's going to be interesting to see whether any changes occur when we're due to have those in due course, the actual full council election. However, of course, what we do have coming up in October is the Democ referendum. So will be very interesting to see what effect that has, and if a democratically elected mayor of Croydon is the winning selection in that referendum, what impact that will have on our council for the future of this borough.
And perhaps another disappointment. You mentioned mayoral elections there. Of course, Sajid Khan was re-elected. The 5 by-elections in Croydon didn't change anything. Although the Conservatives were re-elected in Sutton and Croydon, which I think came as a surprise for the GLA. None of the parties that we've kind of highlighted did so well, but it was a great opportunity to highlight lots of parties. So thank you to all the Mayoral, David Curtin, Steve Keller, particularly, who we worked with before. Some of the GLA candidates, Zach, Maureen, Robert, Sean, who we've worked with over the years. Thanks for all of their contributions. I don't know, Dan, any thoughts on the mayoral election? We've got another one in 3 years.
Well, yes, I mean, I suppose the main talking point is how well Sean Bailey actually did in terms of the first round, at least, of the voting. But realistically, how many places are there for these parties, the Heritage Party, Reform UK, and of course the Reclaim Party? I think perhaps some of them need to start working together as we come out of this pandemic, so that we can actually have a genuine right of centre opposition to the Conservatives and indeed to the government.
Don't even have a left of centre opposition to the government anymore at the moment, it appears. So lastly, Dan, and thinking perhaps a bit more, well, not just us, any highlights from the past year? I'm going to go with my first highlight, which may be something to think about, is we left the EU. Finally, fully. No transition period. Yeah, there's some bits we might not like about where we are, but we left the EU.
Clearly that's something that we've been arguing for many, many years, so fantastic to actually achieve that eventually. I think really what we've got to look forward to in terms of the future, having achieved that, is some of the potential free trade deals that are being talked about at the moment, which would make real impact on people's lives. What we've got to make sure that happens is that we're not restrained by certain vested interests that maybe have a bit more sway in the Conservative Party than they really should do.
Absolutely. I think from a CC perspective, I thought one highlight I want to just say, it ties into a few things to talk about, is some of the interviews we've done. Different people, different parties. Interesting how many have left the party we interviewed them as members of at the time, but there we go. I really enjoyed that we can bring a highlight to parties that are not interviewed by local press, even if they're running locally. They're not always treated with respect at hustings. They're often, and in my own experience, not always treated with respect by the council officers. But it's a great that we have a platform now to highlight some of them, and I'm looking forward to the next few years continuing to work with some of the smaller parties people that make our democracy so vibrant. So hopefully we can keep doing that. But Dan, any last parting thoughts or highlights from you for the past year?
In terms of highlights, I guess just the fact that the Croydon Constitutionalists have been able to put in the limelight to some extent some of these minor parties, in particular, the SDP. The fact that there is a left of centre opposition, if you like, to the woke ideology which we're seeing from Keir Starmer, and long may that continue. I think what we really need to do as a country as well, and everybody after the past 12 months, is to really go forward, and hopefully we will see a lot more from the Croydon Constitutionalists actually meeting up, and not just in the virtual sense, and doing what we really want to do in terms of local campaigning over the next 12 months. So that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Yep, and thanks to everyone who's contributed, who's helped us and please take part in these things in the next year. We look forward to it. And lastly, cheers to the next year.